Well, how you doing? My name is Rex Walters. I'm an associate head coach at Wake Forest University. I've been really blessed to play in the NBA. Been a head coach at the college, the Division I level. Been a head coach in the G League, and then been really fortunate to get to work for Danny this past year. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now let's start at the beginning. Okay, you're a California kid.
Yep.
How does a California kid get to Northwestern?
Wow. So yeah, kind of fell in love with the game early, but then really got serious. Really got really serious. I mean, I always played, but got really serious after my freshman year. Had a really bad freshman year. Averaged like 7 points per game as a freshman on a very good freshman frost soft basketball team. Kind of got called to the carpet a little bit by my brother and my father, and they said, we just don't think you're as dedicated as you say you are.
Right.
So really, at that point, something kind of flipped and got better. I was really fortunate to play on some really good talented high school team. Lucius Davis was a Big West Player of the Year. Kim Kemp, after going to junior college for a year or two, went to Division I. Had the Louis Wico was the state high jump champion. Matt Sample played college basketball. So played with some really good players that really helped me, because when you play against good players, you get better.
Right.
And then was fortunate enough, played for a guy named Ruben Luna that had an AAU program. It was kind of just getting started back then. AAU wasn't what it was now.
Yeah, right.
Went to LA, played on a really good team. We had 15 guys on the team, 13 guys went Division I. Every guy got a scholarship. Played with guys like Calvin Berger, who was a McDonald's All-American. Reggie Smith played in the NBA. He was like our third center.
Really?
And he played in the NBA. Terrell, let's see, who else? Steve Smith played high level. Kassan Jackson played at UCSB. Wayman Strickland played at San Diego. We had 13 guys play Division I. So Terrell Lowry played for the San Francisco Giants. Like, we had some really good players. We win the Slam and Jam. So we beat a team from LA that had Harold Miner, some great names on that team. John Staggers, who was a big-time guy coming out of high school, beat them in the semifinals. And then, we won the championship. I was named MVP of that tournament. Then we go to Las Vegas, and we go all the way to the finals. We lose to a team with Derek Martin, Sean Kemp, Chris Mills, Don McClain, Sean Woods. We lose to them by 5 in the finals. And all of a sudden, I went from being nobody to being kind of somebody. Ended up being a top 100 player, but still not recruited at a high level, like Santa Clara, USF, Pepperdine. I visited Pepperdine, I visited Santa Clara, and I visited Northwestern. And my father's from Quincy, Illinois. Always talked to me about, the Midwest and Midwest basketball, and that's where basketball was invented, and that's where it's played. So I kind of took that as a challenge and said, okay, I'm gonna try to test myself at the highest level. I was just good enough of a student to get into Northwestern. I wasn't a great student, but I was good enough to get into school, and that's how Bill Donlin recruited me. Really good recruiter, coached at Providence, and Bill Foster was the head coach. Jim Brew was one of the assistants. Sean Carney was a young coach. Now he's at Colorado, I believe, and was a really good coach and had a good staff. I thought that maybe we can get it going there at Northwestern, and that's how I got there.
Did your dad mention that it snowed in Chicago?
I had no idea about the hawk. Had no idea about the Lake Michigan and the wind that comes off of that thing and hits you right in the back of the neck. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed parts of it. Academically, it was hard for me. We weren't very successful on the basketball court. That was really hard on me, and just being away from home too.
Right.
If I could have had one of those three things be a little bit better, I probably would have stayed. But the most important thing, the biggest factor, was I just didn't see us winning.
Right.
And so I wanted to go somewhere and have a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. And I didn't even care as much about playing time. I didn't worry about that. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to be the best player I can be and try to find a place where I'll have a chance to either be closer to home or go someplace where we have a chance to get to the tournament.
So now does it open up as a secondary recruiting process, or are you the one that says, I'd like to go here, would you have me? How did that play out?
So different than it is now. Now you basically you can literally just put your name in the portal now and you become a transfer candidate. I went to talk to Coach Foster. He actually asked me before our last game, and then I told him for sure about a week afterwards, maybe 2 or 3 days afterwards. I don't remember. Went to go talk to the AD. because at that time they didn't have to give you a release. They didn't
Right.
have to. So they end up giving me my release. I finished that quarter. There was a quarter system at Northwestern. My father flew out there, packed up my apartment, drove back in a Ford Festiva. I called my AAU coach. He said, "Okay, I'll make some phone calls for you." He knew Jesse Evans at Arizona. He called all schools all across, high major programs, and called UCLA because Jim Herrick had recruited me when he was at Pepperdine. I was at UCLA, and then he knew Kevin Stallings through a guy named Bill Duffy. Bill Duffy is an agent now, pretty powerful agent in the business. He knew Bill pretty well. Bill got him Kevin Stallings' number. He called Kevin, and Kevin said, "Yeah, we'd be interested." They were just coming off of some NCAA recruiting violations from the previous regime, so they were limited in terms of what they could do from a recruiting standpoint. And that's how it all took place. It happened kind of quickly, quite honestly. I got a chance to talk to Kevin Stallings. I had a chance to talk to Roy Williams. Went out there on a visit and liked it. I loved it, actually. And so came back. I didn't take another visit. Coach Williams kind of gave me a window. He said, "Hey, we got another guy coming in next week." That, the old power play that coaches do. And I decided that's where I wanted to go. So
well, I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roy hadn't taken too many transfers in at that point, had he?
No, Rick Callaway had come for 1 year.
Yeah, right.
1 year, the year before I got there, and he came from Indiana think about this, after winning I want to say a national championship.
Right.
He was obviously a great college player. But at that time, there weren't a lot of transfers, period. It just didn't happen very often. There was no grad transfer rule. It wasn't anything like that. So some people say, I have partial blame for all the movement that takes place now. But yeah, it just didn't happen a lot. But honestly, the way it happened with me was pretty simple. I was going to go back home. I thought Santa Clara would take me. I thought maybe Stanford would take me. Maybe since I got admitted to Northwestern, Stanford would take me, which they wouldn't. They couldn't take me even as a transfer. But once I found out, because I had been watching Kansas. So when I was at Northwestern my freshman, sophomore year, I hooped, right? I went to school. And if I wasn't doing that, I was watching, Big Monday, Super Tuesday on ESPN, watching those games. And I always watched Kansas, and they were really good that year. Just loved how fast they played, how they shared the ball, how they really defensively got after it. And so I didn't know that was something I wouldn't be so crazy about when I got there. They really played hard defensively.
Right.
But yeah, fell in love with it. And so it all worked out really, really well.
Now, so do you understand that you're at the Mecca, that you're with, Naismith and Fog Allen and all that? Or is it just kind of, I went to school and that's it? I mean, every day, do you see all that stuff or?
Yeah. It's kind of like basketball Holy Land. It really is. And I know some schools think of it that way. Like, I'm sure Indiana feels it's that way. I'm sure Kentucky feels that way. Like our first coach was James Naismith. What I mean? That's really cool. And they've only had like 8 coaches in the history of the program. Guys, just when they go there, they're there for a long time. And, there's banners all over the place. There's just great tradition. Like when you walk to class and you're on Naismith Drive,
right?
I mean, that stuff's pretty cool. The Allen Fieldhouse is just a barn. It's a big giant hangar / barn. And there's a great court and they pack you in there like sardines. And yeah, so it was every day you felt it. And Coach Williams made you feel it too. Like just a great history. When you walk on campus, you see pictures, you see Wilt Chamberlain, you see Danny Manning, you see JoJo White, you see all these great players that played there. So it doesn't put pressure on you, it just makes you really proud that all of a sudden you're part of it. And the people, how they love Kansas basketball. It's unique to anything. And I've been on Duke's campus. I've been on Carolina's campus. I've been to UCLA. I've even driven through Kentucky. But I didn't experience as a student, but I'm just telling you, when you leave a game that you haven't even played in because you're sitting out and they want you to sign autographs for an hour after the game, that makes you feel pretty cool
Right.
that you're at someplace special.
Well, if I remember correctly, now we're going to get into where you go as a coach. You said you know Roy liked to play fast. You're also on the Big Eight with Oklahoma and Billy Tubbs. You know,
Yeah.
so does that seep into your mentality as you leave there and you move on? It's like maybe this is the way we should play, or is that just a natural thing?
Well, I think it's always important to try to coach what you know. So I had a very good understanding of it. I don't think I had as in depth of an understanding of it, because here's the thing. And it's funny, it just hit me the other day. Like, so I listen to Stan Van Gundy a lot. He's kind of a mentor for me. When I have a big basketball decision to make or whatever, or advice I need, you know, there's you know, kind of two guys I always turn to now. My father, okay, I'm going to go to my father, and I'm going to call Stan and get his thoughts on it. But I didn't really understand how deep the system and how you really and how important it is that you have these three things to be successful as a coach. Number one, you have to have talent, right? You have to have great talent. If you have some of the best talent in your conference, you're going to be really successful. The second thing is your system, and this is all from Stan. It's your system, right? And how you play, what is your style, and what do you believe in both offensively and defensively. And then the third factor is going to be your teaching of it. And you got to teach it at a high level, because that's going to get buy-in, right? Well, you know, I had good talent at San Francisco, but not better than Gonzaga, BYU, and St. Mary's. Right. Okay, we didn't have better talent than – we had good talent. We had really good players, a lot of really good players. Didn't have better talent. I thought that what gave us a chance at times and in years when we put it all together, the system was pretty good, and I got better in the system. I made adjustments to our system because we couldn't play as fast as Kansas, right, especially not defensively. We weren't going to – you know, pressure and deny and run and jump and blitz every pick and roll. And I had to make adjustments. I had to learn over the course of, you know, a 10-year head coaching career, okay, what really works for the players? How am I putting my players in the best position possible? It was playing fast. It was playing in pick and roll. It was shooting a lot of threes and playing through rim, you know, pressure and post play. But at the same time, I had to tweak our defense. Okay, we're not going to play the same way they played at Kansas. It's not going to work for us. So I had to tweak things, and that's in the years that we did a great job of those three things, where our talent was pretty good. Our system got better over time. We took a lot of things that we did at Kansas. We took a lot of things I did when I was in Miami. I watched a lot of tape, and we tweaked some things that I learned from Stan. And then the teaching of it got better, but not where I think it needed to be to sustain it, right? And so that's why in 8 years they made a change. But there's no question that Coach Williams and the Kansas, Carolina, Dean Smith system is a big part of what I believed in when I was a head coach.
Well, I kind of look at it as the Shaka Smart. The VCU, he could do what he wanted to do because in that conference he had that kind of talent. He goes to Texas, and it's not that it won't work, but it's going to take some time to bring in those kind of players. Or Nolan Richardson at Arkansas. You know, when he had 40 minutes of hell, it was 40 minutes of hell. When he stopped getting those guys, it's 23 minutes of hell, and it's not quite as simple. Yeah. So
that's a great point. And I think the other thing too, and nothing against the players at Texas, but at VCU, it was complete and total buy-in to shot.
Right.
And he didn't have to tweak anything. He recruited to that style. And I think VCU, if you look at what they've done, they've been able to sustain it. So it's not just great coaching. It's a great infrastructure from the president on down. They want basketball to be big at VCU, and they're committed to it across the line. I think that's really, really important. And not saying that Texas isn't, but now he's recruiting a different kind of kid. There's pressure to bring in a certain type of kid at Texas that may not fit necessarily what Shaka's done to have so much success at VCU. And they're still having success, but just not quite the same that he's had at VCU.
I remember when Rich Rodriguez took over Michigan for the football program. And he said, when I get my guys, and in my head I'm going, well, what about the guys that are here?
All right.
You know, you still have to play now, and some of those guys are going to be here for another 3 years. So it's a catch-22. If I want to do things the way I want to do them, but we still have to do things for the next 3 years with the guys we have, or I'm not going to be here in 3 years. So,
well, nothing against Rich. I know he's a great coach. You know, that's the greatness of an NBA coach, though, right? And it's going to be now how it's going to possibly be in college basketball. because every year your roster is going to change.
Flip a lot,
and
right?
the days of having necessarily a system, you're going to have to tweak and figure out what works for those 13 guys that you have this year. And that may not work for what you have next year. You know, so the sustaining, you're going to see more guys with more of an NBA mentality where you have a system, but that system has to constantly adjust and change year in and year out, because your roster is going to change year in and year out.
And somebody like a Barry Collier starts at Butler, and it's still progressive, even though he hasn't been on the sideline in, you know, a couple of decades now, it seems like. So, but that's how we put things together. I understand what you're saying, that may not be able to be sustainable because, like you said, you got not only the one and dones, but all the transfers and all of that. And it is going to be different. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Now, at Wake, is it something where you're looking at saying, there's a guy out there we can get that I've seen play at, you know, wherever, at Texas Tech, or I've seen play at Valpo, or and he's out there, he would fit what we do. Are you looking at that as you're scouting around the country as you're doing what we were talking about the other day? Or is it kind of, that's a separate part of the season?
Well, I think you have to now. I think that to only, especially at a place like Wake. So here's the challenge at Wake. We don't take a lot of transfers. We'll lose credits. Like, we're a top 30 academic institution.
Right.
So right away, if a kid transfers from school A to Wake Forest, we may not take a lot of their credits. People don't understand that.
Right.
So we can't be in the same transfer portal, transfer market as everyone else, because your kid will lose 10, 20, 30 hours academically. So for him to now graduate on time is really difficult. Grad transfers for us to get into Wake, you got to better be over 2.8 to have a chance to get into school at Wake Forest. So for us, it's a great challenge. It is. People don't understand how big the challenge is at Wake Forest, right? Like, the days of Tim Duncan are over. It's not, very rarely is that ever going to happen anymore. It can. You got to get really lucky. You've got to do a great job to have that guy stay for 4 years. But so that's the challenge. So what we got to do is we got to get tough kids that are really smart, that can shoot and make good plays. And so if we do that, and if we go 3 for 3 on guys, and we get, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys like that, we're going to be pretty good, you know. But they got to have two. I think they got to have 2 of the 3. They got to be either tough and a maker, or really smart and a maker, right? And maybe just smart and tough, maybe not a great maker, but if we got to have at least 2 of the 3, because if we don't, we're going to have a tough time. Because here's the thing, Duke, even though it's a high academic school, they're getting the guys that they want to get in. Nothing against, that's not a negative. It's just that's what they philosophically believe as an institution. Carolina, the same thing. They're going to get in certain kids that maybe we can't get in. Virginia, Syracuse. You know, we have to recruit to our system and to our strength, and hopefully we get more of those guys that give us a chance to compete and win at a very high level.
And that brings up an interesting point. When we look at, you said, you know, going from Northwestern to Stanford, for example, it seems like those are 2 parallel schools. And I'm thinking the same thing. You know, Duke is, for a student, I got into Duke. So you're thinking that's a parallel universe as well. And it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's not. There have been, and I'm not going to name any names or names of kids, but there's kids that they took that we couldn't take.
Right.
Which you think, I mean, it's crazy, but that is a philosophical thing with their university, whereas Wake Forest, like, we're not. And it's not a negative, it's not a positive. It is what it is. That's the reality that we live in. You know what I mean? And that's what we have to work on.
Okay, so now the way your staff is configured, I didn't really quite get this the other day. As you're doing the scouting report, you said, and then someone else might do another one, how does Danny decide, okay, you've got Carolina, you've got Virginia? Is it like, you know, that as the season's going on, or that's the beginning of the season? You're gonna get this. We've got it all mapped out as the season goes.
Yeah, he maps the whole thing out, and there's a lot of things that I think go through a coach's mind. Like, some guys will be like, hey, we're just going one after the other, one after the other. Or he'll say, well, hey, we're not going to go one after the other because, you know, maybe Coach Wood has always had Carolina, or Chill's always had Duke, so he's more familiar with them. I was the new guy, but it did kind of work that way. There was very few back-to-backs. I had one back-to-back, but I had, 5 days in between my next scout. So I had plenty of time to, number one, get the first one done and then start working on the second. And I had plenty of time to do it because he usually wants the scout done. He wants basically the paper scout to be done 3 days in advance. He wants everything like the video edit to be done about 2 days in advance because that's when we really start showing it, or bits and pieces of it maybe 3 days in advance. So, but Danny came up with it, and we knew what our scouts were well in advance, so we could start planning, start doing some legwork early to make sure that we were prepared for our scouts.
And then who does the self-scouting, or do you do anything like that?
We do after the game. After the game, we have a video guy that puts together the edit after the game. And we kind of really look at, okay, what are the 3 things that gave us a great chance? What are the 3 things that hurt us in this game? So whether we won or lost, the next time we play them, or it's just great teaching points for our guys. This is how we're going to be successful as a basketball team, whether it's our closeouts weren't hard enough, our contests weren't good enough, we gave up too many offensive rebounds, or our shot quality was high. We kept our turnovers down 12 or below.
Right.
We look at all those things and show it to our players because they want to see themselves, not just us talking about it. They want to see the post-game edit.
Look at what I did, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you discover even positive tendencies, do you say, now if someone's scouting this, maybe we need to tweak that, or maybe we can't run this all the time, or is it, hey, this worked 5 games in a row, it should probably work in the 6th one?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Danny does a really good job of what we call counters. So, in one play, hey, we're going to get this cut, but on the second play, instead of making this cut, you're going to make that cut. You know what I mean? Instead of running a flare this time, you're going to tight curl it to the rim because they're ready for that. They're ready for that flare 3. So you just make subtitle, just little adjustments, little counters here and there, just to keep teams off of balance. Of course, every time on the second game, both teams are going to make adjustments. Right. So what you got to do is you got to think about how, what their habits are, because at the end of the day, what you really have your habits. So we've got to make sure our habits are built in really, really good, right? So we can make a few small, slight adjustments, but it doesn't waver or crack at the core of who we are.
Now, the one last thing, when you're looking at holiday tournaments or NCAA tournaments or whatever, when you don't have that time frame and you don't even know who the opponent is going to be the next day, how compressed is that? And I noticed you start to smile there. How compressed is that? And is it we just have to rely on what we do?
It's crazy. So here's the thing. So the one scout that we did, you were there for it. So that was the final. I also had the first round game. I knew I had the first round game. So it's funny because we're all kind of sitting there watching the next games happen. You're like, gosh, I hope they don't win because that means I got more work to do. You know what I mean? But I did. I had the first game and I had the championship game. I also had the flu. Like I was throwing up the day of the Charleston game. Like literally, like Daniel's looking like, are you gonna you don't have to be here. And I'm like, no, this is my scout. I'm sucking this sucker up. And we're going to get through this. I tried to stay away from the guys as much as who knows? I might have had COVID-19. Who knows? I was not feeling good. I know I didn't because our guys are safe. I joke, but it's not funny. But still, I was really messed up. But I had already done a lot of prep work on Arizona beforehand. And the good thing was after we won our first game, I got a chance to watch them. And now, because when you're there in a tournament, you can live scout. So then I got some calls. So I felt really good about, number one, the Charleston scout, which we won, and we played well. Defensively, I thought we were really good. And then the Arizona game, I felt good. Our guys gave us a chance to beat a really good team in Arizona, and we had a really good feel for them. I thought our shot selection was the thing that really hurt us in that game. We shot a lot of quick contested ones against a team that, you got to make a team miss. I always say, like, if you're going against, a great hitter, right? If you think you're just going to throw your fastball and strike them out against a good hitter with Barry Bonds, right? It ain't gonna work. You better have a great fastball. You better have a great changeup. You better have a great knuckle. You better have a good curve and a good slider. Like you better throw the whole Yeah, the kitchen sink's gonna have to go out against Arizona, especially if it was a little bit of a road game. The crowd wasn't huge, but still a lot of Arizona fans. So like we had to play an A game. And we kind of gave them a B minus. And Arizona had a lot to do with that.
And one last question for you, because I can do this all day, but you have stuff to do, I have stuff to do. At what point, or is this even possible? 'Cause I'm not sure in my mind it's actually happened. At what point in your head are you now Coach Walters and not player Walters? At what point did that occur, or has it?
It definitely has. Okay, but I'll say this, and I think it's for young coaches. I think it's really important to know this. Like I wasn't ready at 31, 32, and guess what? In my mind, if I went back, I knew I was ready.
Right.
I knew I was ready to be a head coach, even though I'd only been assistant for 3 years. I just knew I was ready. But I had a lot of player in me as a assistant coach back then, and a lot as a head coach. I was, at times, and I had some really good players at FU. I was the best shooter on my team, and you know what I mean. So there's things about me that I didn't understand, they didn't get, right? Because as a player, I knew it, but that was at 31, 32
Right.
years old. So now, and you learn through success, you learn through failures, right? And we did some decent things at Florida Atlantic. We did some really good things at USF. We didn't get to an NCAA tournament, which bothers me. But we got to an NIT. We won 20 games twice. We did some really good things. But the player side of me that I still had hurt me in terms of the coaching side that I was. So I learned through that. I learned that, I can't coach with my hair on fire the way I played
Right.
with my hair on fire. And it helped me, and now at 50, I feel like I'm so much better of a coach. I have a better understanding of number one, what they need from me is more important than what I need.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Perfect. Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, like I need to figure out what they need to get them to play at the high level, not what I would have done, right? If I was coaching me.
Right.
Psychology part of it. I coached. I played for Chuck Daly. I played for Pat Riley. I worked for Stan Van Gundy and played for him. And those guys are master psychologists. You have to be as a coach. You have to know and figure out what do they need and what do I need to get them to do to give us the best chance of success. And I didn't necessarily understand that when I was 33, maybe even 34, 35, 36. I started to understand it towards the end, and it was almost too late.
Well, I remember I caught myself one day and I realized what the problem was. I saw a kid didn't make a pass because he didn't see the angle.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, how did he not see that?
Yeah.
I've been seeing that since I was 9 years old. And I realized he's not you.
Yeah.
You have to coach him. You can't coach you. So that's a tough thing to get into your head, especially when you play at the level you did. So
I appreciate
I appreciate you taking the time. This was fantastic. I'm a sports junkie, so I love talking to people that are like-minded and are passionate about what they do. And again, the seminar you did yesterday or Wednesday, you did yesterday too, was just knocked my socks off. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It was fun talking to you. Anytime you need someone to talk to and waste some time, I'm here for you. Okay?
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.